This is Wayne Goodsell. Now we'll get to Oakes. Joseph Smith, in his 1838 history, talked about how there were these different religions who had the same Bible but interpreted the passages differently. What you're witnessing with conference is that very same practice. It's just the church has yet another interpretation of the Bible, and of Mormon scriptures even, from what Joseph Smith originally had it. And Christianity believes that despite the shattering into 1,000 different branches of Christianity, that they're all the same under Jesus, which means Christianity is relative, and that interpretation of Bible scriptures are relative, because everybody will be saved as long as they believe in Jesus Christ. This is a dangerous principle, but one the church is embracing themselves. There is only one interpretation, and that's what the author wrote. So you have to use science to study the scriptures. You don't read and get a spiritual witness of truth. But the concept of out of sight, out of mind is practiced. So yeah, I'm very concerned, as I warned the government about the church, and now Mormons are more brainwashed than previously. The more they get influence to the church, the more brainwashed and indoctrinated they become, and the harder it is to teach them the truth. For example, the FLDS Church under Warren Jeffs. Those members still believe Warren Jeffs is the true and living prophet of Jesus, whose father is Adam. Adam God theory from Brigham Young. Where do you think they got it from? But they continue to commit crimes, as they're now getting sued for their child labor and other criminal activities. And the government has no problem going after the FLDS Church. And I think even Warren Jeffs is being sued again for more crimes that he had committed. The number of conference is incorrect. They claim that it's from Joseph Smith, that they are the successors of Joseph Smith. And in so doing, they are incorrect. Brigham Young founded his church in 1851. That's when he incorporated his Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In 1849, he established the Corporation of the Perpetual Immigration Fund. The United States shut down the church in 1887. It took some time for appeals to go through the Supreme Court, which confirmed the Congress bill that was passed, the Edmunds-Tucker Act. And so when Heber J. Grant reincorporated as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, he... why was there no sound? That is strange. I'm trying to get as many videos as I can, hoping that I can get them all or mostly posted before the next session. So hang on here while I finish up with Nelson's. And so, yeah, the other group that left the church, the main body of the church, and formed their own organization was in 1920. And so Heber J. Grant, having the original name that was banned by the United States, took it up again, and thus had to promise the government that they aren't going to continue the practices of Brigham Young. But if you've been paying attention to my videos exposing what Nelson's been making changes, they're restoring Brigham Young's church. little by little, step by step, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. And so the conferences need to start from 1924, the April one, because it was after the October conference when they incorporated in 1923. They won't tell you this because their whole existence depends on the fraud that their successors from Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon as their keystone. But they're now Christian instead of Jewish. And they've gone all these 200 years now. They have to maintain the lie. And sure enough, this conference perpetuated it. And Oaks, likewise, perpetuated that. Now what's interesting is that Oaks had to affirm to Mormons that Nelson was going to speak at the end. It is tradition for the president of the church to open conference. And for Oaks to open conference, you need to know what's being done here. I did the video where it looked like the church was preparing Oaks to take over the church because he's the successor. And so sure enough, conference again confirmed they're preparing Oaks to take over the church. And so Oaks, whitewashed, as the Nelson's video is about, concerning the church's charity efforts. I've done numerous videos over the years explaining that this is all a fraud, a con, a shell game. He says that for 2021 they gave out $906 million in charity to the, 182? We'll even say 186 to be generous, to make sure that we get all of the nations covered. If you were to divide that into the 906 million, you're getting around 4.5 million per country. And you think, well, that's a lot of money. Okay, sure. But how much does the church make? Oops. Don't go there, Travis. Don't reveal the truth. Because if you remember Jesus talking to the rich man's asking Jesus, I've been a good boy, I've followed the commandments, what more do I need to do? Jesus says, give up your money and follow me. And he couldn't do it because he's wealthy. He's not going to give up his wealth. Well, that's what the church is doing. They're not giving up their wealth. Jesus already came to Adam-ondi-Ahman. They didn't give him the money because they're so wealthy. That's an inside joke between those who have been watching me for at least a year. I'm here because I exposed that. The Adam-ondi-Ahman con. And so, yeah, the church is not setting the right example, even though they brag about how much money they give, just like the Pharisees bragged about how much money they donate when the widow then comes where nobody sees her and gives 2 mites. And so she gave the greater percentage. And Jesus pointed her out as the greater person because of the greater percentage that she gave versus the Pharisees, who gave a lot of money, but the percentage was not so great. And so, whistleblower in 2019 for tithing only. Remember, Oaks reaffirmed the church has many different sources of revenue. And he only listed those that are charitable. There are business revenue as well. And so the church, First Presidency under Nelson, responded to the whistleblower by saying, yeah, we follow the parable of the talents. We take 10% of every source of income and have a different financial institution because it's a safe practice because of hackers. You don't want your whole funding to be hacked because they're all in one account. So they have multiple accounts, one for each source of revenue. And so each source of revenue takes 10% of what they receive from donations from members and others who donate, and then invest it in the stock market, as well as save it to gain interest. The whistleblower for tithing said that they had over 100 billion saved up. That's the 10% from the main tithing source of revenue. They had 100 billion set aside in Ensign Peak Advisors, and 40 billion was used to invest in the stock market, and the rest was making 7 billion a year in interest, no longer requiring Mormons to donate because they make more than what is donated, or not donated, given in tithing. That's the mistake that James Huntsman made. He called tithing a donation. And so that means that they've received $1 trillion for tithing in 2019. That means that 900 billion was left into the tithing account. It does not cost for the building of temples and churches and Book of Mormons. They have a Book of Mormon fund now, so that's a different source of revenue. So the building of buildings does not cost $900 billion, even for maintenance year after year. I estimated that it's about several billion. So what's happening to the other 900 it'd be 895 billion? That's a lot of money. Where is it? Well, the Australia press had exposed that the church was keeping offshore accounts, not just the regular financial accounts, and that these offshore accounts were a violation of Australian law. The church apparently silenced the complaint. Their influence and leverage over Australia is far greater than the press. But that lets us know that each financial institution for the reserve then has an offshore account for the excess. So when Bednar got up to the press and he was asked, how are you guys doing with the stock market? Well, and he says, well, I guess you can see this past week we're not doing so well. He lied. The church is a major investor. So when the stock market goes down, it's because the church is selling their stocks. They made money. Don't be fooled. Where did that money go? Because it didn't go into Ensign Peak Advisors. It went to their offshore accounts. So when you see the stock market fall, the church is doing a panic sell-off and laundering it into offshore accounts to gain interest there. And they've told us that that's used for the second coming, to give to Jesus, which they failed to do because they're so rich. And so don't be fooled by Oaks. What he said is, we're passing the buck to have other people do it. He said it's too overwhelming for one organization to handle all of it around the world. Not if you're trillionaires. The church already has an administration structure that's set up like a pyramid scheme. They used to have a welfare program with an administration involving in the different areas of welfare. They still have a welfare director or something like that who's a member of the 70 or is a regular member who's paid for the job. But they can use the exact same structure with welfare and the bishop storehouses. They just chose not to do so because they don't want to use their wealth for that end. And that's why. And so they justify it by saying, well, fast offerings, we've got to give more fast offerings if you want us to do better with bishop storehouse. No. Tithing, according to Malachi, is for the bishop storehouses, for welfare for the poor. But they lied to us about that. But yeah, fast offering also. 10% into a financial institution, vested in the stock market, the excess dumped into an offshore account. That is the parable of the talents that they're doing. It's just they're not giving it to Jesus. And so now you see how the church is passing the buck, and they're not really giving a lot. Because $4 million for each country, they can even do 5. With, we'll say, $5 trillion to make it easier. What's the percentage on that? Yeah, that's far worse than even the Pharisees. That's horrifying. And yet they still claim that they're the good guys. They're charitable. They're doing what the Lord requires. No, they're not. They got to give up their wealth for the poor and the needy to lift them out of poverty, not continually supply them with their needs, such as communism, as is the common complaint by them. Well, we don't want to create a welfare state. And he brought up religious freedom as their form of charity. That's what they're using to overthrow the government and overthrow the Constitution, to be exempt from following the law. Yeah, he bragged about others who are charitable that the church helps with their measly donations. And that for 2021 only was less than $1 billion. And even that, 1 billion, see, 10 billion is 1%, 100 billion is 0.1%, or 1%, 10%, 1%, 0.1%, if we were to go off of the charity, with 1 trillion as the baseline for their total asset value. But then the actual is far more scary. So, gotta read my small print here. Oh man, this is a longer one. Let's see.
What is it?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. He was praising others for being inspired to give, being Christ-like examples, and yet the church is not. But they claim, oh, we're giving to these other people because it's too overwhelming for us to do what they're doing. No, they should have set the paths, led the way. But again, they're not inspired. They don't have authority. They're more interested in hoarding the money than doing what God wants for his children. So, that was Oaks.